Hi there, everybody, and welcome to the Growth Execution Podcast. We are here every week to give you some insights into business growth, business launch. I'm delighted to be joined this week by Wesleyne Greer. Wesleyne, great to see you. How are you?
I'm doing lovely. Thank you so much for having me on.
It's a genuine pleasure. Really excited to have you on. So one of the things we really kick off with is to find out a bit more about generally your launch story. So this season of the Growth Execution Podcast is all about how we can help people to make that leap, right? So how can we help them to jump into the world of entrepreneurship? So I wonder how you started out getting involved in this particular journey for you and your business.
So, my journey into entrepreneurship, I would say, is not the traditional one. A lot of people are like, hey, I always knew I wanted to own my own business. That's something I had a goal to do. However, my story is a little bit different. So a couple of years ago, I was working for an international chemical company, and I was an international sales manager. I had a full month of traveling. I was in the UK, I was in Norway, I was in Scotland, I was in LA. I was all over the world, literally. And so it was 4 weeks of straight travel. And then I got back and we had a board meeting. So I had to present to the board everything that myself and my team had done for the year. And so after presenting, everybody on the board was like, that's it? That's all you've done? And I was like, excuse me? I have been killing myself. I have flown over 100,000 miles this year, spent 60 days in hotels, and it's not good enough. And so at that moment, I realized nothing I did was ever going to be good enough. And at that time, I was like, I'm done. Literally, that was it.
Wow. Congratulations. What a moment. That must have been some. I mean, how did you feel then? That must have been like heart racing, kind of like, right, where is this going to go?
It was, at that moment, I was like, I'm ready for this because, as a salesperson, as a sales manager, I always tell my people, and I always thought of that this is my own little small business, right? So whatever I put into it, I get out of it. And so I felt like I was ready. It was actually a calm feeling. I was like, yep, I'm not going to be traveling all over the world anymore, killing myself. I'm going to be living and working in my passion, doing what I absolutely enjoy.
Fantastic. And investing that time you would otherwise be working for other people and or spent in between constructive meetings and so on, actually working on your business instead.
Exactly. And literally from that moment to when I legally formed my business, it was about 3 weeks. Once I said, I'm done. It was like night and day.
Fantastic. And I've seen obviously, a lot of what you do and the things that people say about you, the testimonials you've got on your site, basically you're all in, right? Basically, this is what Wesleyne does. She goes all in and really commits to it. And what did that kind of from a shape perspective? So that 3 weeks was coming through. How did you start? Then it's the challenge is, right, I've got this idea for the business. I'm going to launch the business. What then? How do you start going out and getting your clients?
So I always knew what I love to do. I love mentoring. I love teaching. I love coaching. And I was really instrumental at building sales teams and helping to grow them and getting everyone on the team. I say to be a sales superstar, but essentially getting those salespeople to be autonomous as fast as possible. And that last company that I worked in, it was full of PhD chemists and they had no sales structure. They had nothing, right? And so I was actually brought in to build out the sales organization, everything from CRM implementation to having marketing, everything. And so I really enjoyed that. And so I knew that that's where my passion lied. If I could do that for a company that had no clue on how to sell or do anything and make them profitable, I could do it for anyone. So and so I betted on myself and I knew that I was really good at that. So that was really where I said, this is what I want to do.
Fantastic. And what was that kind of, did you go out to people that you knew as a kind of start point? Did you start to market, kind of through advertising? What was your sort of early steps in terms of getting those clients on board?
So I didn't go to people that I knew because I have this theory, and it's something that when I'm working with entrepreneurs, I tell them, I say, you always want to try on people that it doesn't matter if you screw up or not. So my idea was literally, I was networking. I would go to 2 to 3 events per week. I mean, I was driving all over Houston. Literally, I was everywhere. And I had like a method, I would go to a networking event. I would get a stack of business cards. I would talk to people. And if I'm like, yep, that's a good client, that's a good target, I would ask them right then and there, can we schedule some time to get to know each other? And then I would follow up with them and we would start the conversation. And what came from that, literally within 2 months of starting my business, I had 3 clients, right? Because I was just like, I was on it. I was focused. I knew what I wanted to do and I was going. And, people always say sales or marketing. And I always say the money is in the conversion. It doesn't matter how many people are filling your funnel. I could have a stack of business cards this big, but if I didn't convert any of them, then nothing would be happening.
Yeah, no, absolutely right. Couldn't agree more. And a lot of what we spend our time here in Grocery talking about is that conversion side of things, particularly the CRM management side. And you mentioned that within your previous business. Just because I'm interested as a salesperson myself, do you use a CRM system at this point? Is that one that you particularly recommend to your clients?
I absolutely do. And
Good. I love to hear that.
Yes, I call myself a CRM enforcer. When I'm working with clients, it's one of the first things that I ask them. I say, do you have a CRM? Okay, if you don't have a CRM, how are you tracking deals? And sometimes they do have a CRM, but it's like a glorified address book. What does that do? Like you're wasting money. So your CRM, your day should start there and your day should end there because the CRM tells you how you should be spending your time and everything should be in there. I have a separate pipeline for referral partners, speaking engagements, actual clients. So I know where I am in terms of all of those. And so I can see the return on my investment, right? If I'm spending 50% of my time and I'm speaking to crowds that aren't converting, then I need to stop doing that. Right? If I'm spending 50% of my time in a specific market and it's not converting, then I need to stop doing that. And you don't know that unless you have the data.
Yeah, could not agree more. Honestly, this is so refreshing to hear. It's one of the constant challenges, I think, particularly in small businesses, is that it feels like it's administrative. And it feels like it's actually sort of, time that you're not spent actively out there. But it is the most important stuff, right? Because otherwise, it's that busy fools thing. You can just spend a lot of time running around, not doing anything that's really going to help the business forward.
Exactly. Absolutely. If you are not spending time building in leads in your CRM every day, you're not filling your pipeline. So I have my own personal key performance indicator is 3 to 5 new leads a day. Right. And so what am I going to do? Am I going to go on LinkedIn? Am I going to go to a community that I'm a part of? There's so many different ways that I do it, but that's a key performance indicator I use for myself because I know if I do that, that means that I'm going to hit my revenue targets each month.
Yeah, exactly that. So there's a system that I can use called LAPS, which is leads, appointments, presentations, and then sales. There are a number of these different things, but you're absolutely right. If you don't know how many leads equals how many appointments equals how many presentations equals how many sales, then we've got a problem. And we need to fix that pretty quickly, right?
Absolutely.
Super. And I love the kind of the obvious passion and enthusiasm that you have for your business. What do you think when you look back to the time of your launch? What might you have done different?
What would I have done differently? I think that one thing is being more focused. So as I said, when you're out there and you're trying to build a business, it's just like, I got to get revenue in. I have bills to pay. I have to do this. I have to do that. And so I didn't really hone in on my particular niche or my particular area for a little while. And now I can see that since I have done that, the clarity in my voice when I'm on LinkedIn or when I'm talking to people, people know exactly who I serve and how I can help them. Because early on in the business, people who aren't in sales or marketing, they get them confused, right? And so they were like, oh, you're a marketer. I'm like, no, I'm not marketing, right? I'm like, I do sales. And they're like, well, I don't understand. So really being focused and speaking in that voice is one of the things that I think is the biggest thing I would do differently.
Fantastic. And look, again, we separate out marketing and sales here because they are fundamentally different skills, fundamentally different approaches, and one services the other. So in terms of the journey from your early kind of building the business to now. What would you say has given you the most kind of satisfaction? What kind of keeps driving you on?
I think that the clients, because when I have these success stories, when I'm talking to people and I hear the growth, I was actually speaking to a past client yesterday, and I found out that he left his previous company. And so we were catching up. And the words he was saying, he said, you know, the sales team, they're not thinking strategically. There's no process. You know, I really need to coach. I don't need to, all of the sales managers that work under me, they're just managing, they're not leading. I was like, oh my gosh, I love that, right?
Yeah.
It's like we worked together over 5 months ago, right? And to know that all of those things and those building blocks are what really helped him elevate to get to this position. Because when he was interviewing, he was saying those things, right?
Yeah.
And to go into the organization, yesterday was literally his first day, went into the organization, and on day one, he was able to diagnose that. That for me is what keeps me going. That is what helps me continue to go out there and find those new clients who are resistant at first, and then we make those strides, and then they're ready to change.
I get it, absolutely. And do you have sort of somebody that, if you look back to your early career, inspired this side of Wesleyne, that's this kind of like, right, getting deals done and going all in? Is there anybody or any thing that kind of really pushed you through?
Yes, there was a sales manager that I had many, many moons ago, and she was very instrumental in teaching me what I call the good sales acumen, right? How to sell. And then in watching her, I was able to transition into a management role because she actually patterned for me what a good sales manager is supposed to do, how you should lead, how you should always support your people, not to just beat them over the head with, have you made phone calls? Have you done this? Have you done demos, right? And so she's very instrumental, I would say, in the trajectory of my career.
Gotcha. And those kind of, that underpinning, that sort of template of what good looks like is something that I'm sure, as you were talking about earlier, is something you demonstrate and you showcase too. In terms of when you look at sales teams particularly, what do you think makes for a successful sales team?
Oh, that's a deep one. So a successful sales team, you know, contrary to what most people think, I am more focused on people who have what I call sales DNA. They have the sales acumen. You don't need to know the product. You don't need to have sold for 15 or 20 years. You just need to have strong sales DNA. And I say that because if your company is as good as you think it is, you can teach them the product. That's easy, right? You can teach them whatever you're making or whatever you're doing. And if they have the motivation, if they have the coachability, if they have all of these key things, then you can mold them into what you need them to be. So that's one thing I would say. And then another thing that is so important is having a process. Right? I see it. You have it right there behind you. A sales process.
First thing you meet in sales. Yeah.
Sales process. And it's like the first thing you have there, because if you don't have a sales process, you have a people-driven sales force. You don't want to have people-driven sales force. It needs to be process-driven, because when that sales superstar decides to move on, or when they leave, or something happens to them, or their territory, you know, starts to flounder, you have nothing left. So process, coaching, those are the two things that are so important in building strong sales teams.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And I could not agree more. It's so refreshing to hear it. I think you're absolutely right. It's like a sports team where you've got your star striker or your MVP, the person who's the most valuable player within the team. If they go, unless you have a strong, solid underpinning that everybody else knows their jobs and knows how things work, then your business can go out the door with that, right? Or your sports team, your success.
Exactly. And then you mentioned the sports team, and a lot of times I use a sports analogy because there's this phenomenon, I call it a player coach. You never see the coach in the team, in the game, right? The coach is on the sidelines. So if you are selling, if you are closing for your salespeople, you're not doing it right. You can't think strategically. You can't see what the whole team needs because you're so focused on the one deal or the two deals or hitting quota this month or doing this or doing that. So really stepping back and thinking strategically about the team is so important.
That's so right. And it's one of the things I think that particularly young businesses struggle with, where perhaps the owner, the founder, or somebody very senior who's come into the business very early has been involved in sales and has had to do that cold face negotiation and got the early deals and the early successes in. For them to then step back can feel a real kind of a wrench and a real kind of risk to the business. How do you kind of help them to navigate that? What sort of skills should they deploy in order to pull themselves out of it?
So one thing that I like to tell these new sales managers is you have to realize that you were excellent in what you did. You were amazing. It is probably why you got a promotion. It's probably why you got this new position, but no one is ever going to be you. That is the first thing that they have to realize. No one is ever going to be you. And you have to understand each person's strengths and weaknesses. You can't manage the team with an iron fist and expect every single person to do exactly the same thing. And a lot of times these new sales managers, they focus on that bottom 80%, the people who are in the middle of the pack are not doing so well, and they ignore the top 20%. And what happens is you spend so much time trying to fix the people at the bottom, you ignore the people at the top who could be achieving more. And if you stop trying to fix and start trying to coach, like a lot of times I'll ask, when was the last time you went on a ride along? When was the last time you sat in on a meeting with them? So what are they doing wrong? Why are they not closing deals, right? And they can't answer the questions, right? And so it's really, you have to remember that you started somewhere. So some of the people on your team are brand new and some are seasoned. And just remember, each person is an individual, and coming up with a individual plan for each person to grow is really what helps.
Yeah, and there's always a kind of analogy that I think of between when you're doing a deal and doing a sale, you spend so much time kind of analyzing the pipe and understanding that particular client and going, right, these are the steps we do. But doing that for one of your own sales team is something that people don't spend the time on, right? Essentially, what you're trying to do is very much the same thing. You want to coach that deal, that person through to excellence. And I think you're right. I think that listening side of things as to what's making them go right now, what's their motivation, is so critical.
Yeah. And no matter what time of year it is, I always ask the sales leader, or sometimes a business owner is a sales manager also. I ask them to have their team set their goals, right? And when we do goal setting, there's always a personal goal. And whatever that personal goal is, the sales manager, when they're coaching or when they're talking or doing things, they need to bring it back to the forefront. Remember, you said you want to pay off your car by December. You need $30,000, right? Okay, so if you lose this deal, that's putting you further away from your goal. But if you win this deal, that means you're going to be able to pay it off in 6 months instead of 12 months, right? So bringing it back to the forefront of what matters to the actual salesperson, because at the end of the day, they're people, right? Just like you're a person, they're people with goals and aspirations.
Absolutely right. And making it that real to them and that kind of emotional, I think really pushes it through. That's fantastic. And thank you. Thinking back to how you've been managed in the past and what you've kind of faced, what's the best piece of advice do you think you've ever received?
The best piece of advice I think that I received was, it's not about you, right? And when I take that to heart, whether in a direct selling moment or managing a team, it's so true. Because if you show up to a sales call with your slide deck and all of this stuff, you're going to lose that sale. And likewise, if you're managing the team and saying, oh, I used to do this and I used to do that, and this is what made me great, They don't care about that. And so when you take to heart, it's not about you in either situation. When you're selling and you make it about the other person, you make it about the buyer, you make it about the sales team, that is when you're going to see true success.
Yeah, brilliant. I think we've all been kind of in those as salespeople. You've seen that salesperson up there telling everybody how amazing they are, and how does that resonate? It doesn't resonate at all, does it? It's really, really, really sad. If you look back at kind of, again, going back to the launch side of things, what do you think people who are launching right now? Okay, so we've got the pandemic. I think there's a lot more people coming into to launch their businesses right now. Is there anything that you think is specifically 2021 that they should be thinking about as they go out and launch their businesses into the world?
I would say when you're launching a business, it is so important to understand what the gaps are in the market. So if you are opening up a digital marketing firm or a fitness studio or whatever you're doing, you have to understand what is a gap that I can fill. Because if you do the same thing that everyone else is doing, you're not going to make much traction. So really think about the gaps that need to be filled, and then also think about the specific industry or region or area that needs that gap to be filled. So I like to say you want to be a big fish in a small pond. So don't go out there and focus on, okay, I'm going to target all of the UK and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that. Say I'm going to target the small region, or I'm going to target the small age group, and really be laser focused, because when you become that big fish in that small pond, then all the other ponds start coming to you, and that's what you want, right? And then you make an ocean. So be laser focused and make sure that your product is actually solving a problem in the marketplace.
Couldn't agree more. I think that's, if you look at this sort of Jeff Bezos, almost that example where he was just books, wasn't he, at the start? Very, very focused on books and made books so phenomenally successful. Like you said, then all the other ponds started to just kind of come in, and now he's reasonably successful, I think it's fair to say, as he's got about his work.
Yes, like I know Amazon. I used to order books in college, right, from Amazon. They were a bookstore, right? And now they do everything. They have a pharmacy and they deliver food. I mean, and again, so he made sure that he was really, really good at delivering books, right? And what he did, he knew he wanted to grow. And so in delivering books, his strategy was to understand what a supply chain looks like to get something from point A to point Z. And that's all Amazon is. It is a company that executes well on supply chain management, from getting something from a seller to a buyer, no matter what it is. And so when you do that, when you take that model and say, I have to get really good at this, then you can start getting bigger and bigger. And like I said, you want to be the big fish in the small pond.
Wonderful. And it's what you were talking earlier on as well about the niche, actually finding that niche, making sure that you are owning it, you're speaking the language of the people that are in it, and that gives them permission to be passionate about you, right? If you're on their side, you're delivering things that are very specific to them, then they are going to be so much more supportive than if they just think you're trying to spraying and praying and hoping that someone's going to stay.
Yep, I 100% agree. There's somebody that I frequently talk to, and she says the riches are in the niches. And I love that. The riches are in the niches.
Fantastic. Wesleyne, that's been amazing. Thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it and the insights. I wonder, we ask people always, it's very early over where you are over in Texas. What are you up to today? What's happening out there?
So what am I up to today? As I said, I set KPIs for myself. So I have, I'm going to engage with my audience on LinkedIn. I make sure I do my posts, and then I have a list of follow-ups and things that I need to do. I don't think I have any coaching sessions today, but so for me, early in the week is all about the sales, right? It's all about that marketing, the sales, the prospecting. And then later in the week is when I try to have those discovery meetings with clients, when I'm doing my coaching sessions. So really, I try to plan my week out to make it as effective as possible.
Listen, there's so many great insights in this. Thanks again, Wesleyne. Really, really great to have you on. Growth Execution Podcast. If you want to get in touch with Wesleyne, how would our listeners go about that?
The best way to get in touch with me is to send me a message on LinkedIn and let me know that you heard me on the Growth Formula. So send me a message, make sure you personalize it and say, hey, heard you on the Growth Formula, want to chat with you more. And I'll be definitely open to chatting with you more.
Fantastic. All of the details we'll have on the podcast itself as well. So thanks once again. Really good to catch up. Best of luck out there. All right.
Thanks so much. Bye.
See you.